Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Trek, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of the original series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, or Enterprise. Today I'm looking at Tuvix from Voyager's second season, or as I like to call it, that time Janeway straight up murdered a dude. This episode was requested by Marley Gould, so thank you for the suggestion, and let's get going. We begin the episode with Neelix and Tuvok hunting for a type of flower that could be used as food, and as per usual, Neelix is being over the top to annoy Tuvok. Chakotay can't transport them back because there's a glitch, which Harry fixes, but not very well, because they're only getting one pattern.
Tuvok or Neelix? I don't think it's either of them.
The pattern materializes, and into the credits we go.
I'm Lieutenant Tuvok. And I'm Neelix.
And he's not wrong, so heads to sickbay where he recognizes everyone, and his DNA is made up of Tuvok, Neelix, and the plants they had collected, which seems to have thrown off the transporter. Tuvok Neelix thinks things must be difficult for Kes, who's more interested in what's going on in his head. And while he says he has the memories of both, he's his own person and chooses the name Tuvix.
I'm so glad you're here to help me through this, sweetie. I'm sorry.
The Doc is at a loss of what to do with Tuvix, but he is living his best life and wants to go back to Tuvok's post. And the Doctor agrees because Tuvix is annoying him, so Janeway invites him to a briefing. They can't work out what went wrong to cause the transporter accident.
Sex.
I beg your pardon.
Tuvix explains that, honestly, I don't get what he's talking about, but it seems to explain the accident.
Just like that, Tuvix is born.
So Janeway wants it investigating. Kes runs into Tuvix and he invites her to dinner where the mess hall is in chaos, so he boots everyone out, which Kes finds funny, and they bond as they organise the galley, but he says something to upset her and she leaves. Tuvix fixes a problem that Tuvok couldn't previously, and Janeway comments he's fitting in well, while Tom and B'Elanna pick flowers, which proves Tuvix's theory correct, but all tests to separate the DNA patterns have failed.
Are you saying I'm going to be this way forever?
The Doc says he'll keep trying, but chances are the process is irreversible. And later, Tuvix goes to see Kes, who is burning candles to mourn the loss of her two friends. He admits he feels like an imposter, but tells Kes he loves her, despite Tuvok having a wife. So she asks him to leave and goes to see negligee Janeway, who invites her in. They talk about their loss, and Kes complains to Janeway about Tuvix's behaviour, and Janeway likens the loss to being stranded in the Delta Quadrant. They may have to eventually accept the loss. Aww, hugs.
My door is always open to you, Kes.
2 weeks later, Tuvix has integrated into the crew but is avoiding Kes, and apparently his cooking is better than Neelix's. And the Doctor runs a theory past Harry that could potentially reverse the process. Kes goes to see Tuvix and they agree to be friends right before they're called to sickbay, where the Doc and Harry reveal they've perfected the separation process so they can get Tuvok and Neelix back. But the problem is, Tuvix doesn't want to die. Janeway is left with a dilemma and gets into a disagreement over whose decision it is about the procedure, and Tuvix calls it an execution, but Janeway says he's trying to do the same to Tuvok and Neelix.
But I have the will to live of two men.
And he gives a speech similar to that of Shylock in Merchant of Venice, and says he has a right to live. Tuvix goes to see Kes and asks for help to convince the captain to let him live. So she goes to her and admits that she just wants Neelix back. So Janeway goes to the bridge to deliver her decision. Tuvix freaks out and runs around the bridge begging for help.
Doesn't anyone see that this is wrong?
And he makes a break for it, but is restrained.
Each of you is going to have to live with this. And I'm sorry for that. For you are all good people.
He's marched to sickbay where the Doc says he won't do the procedure against Tuvix's wishes, so Janeway takes over. Make sure you sit on your mark now. And she operates the transporter to restore her crew members. Although, I don't know where this extra uniform came from. Janeway's face as she walks away from what she did says it all. Okay, before we get into the episode itself, I want to preface it by saying I'm not the biggest fan of this one because of my preferred type of episode of Star Trek and TV shows in general. I've been through enough shit in my real life that I watch TV to escape, so I much prefer the light-hearted fun episodes to the darker, more real ones. which is why I love the first 2 seasons of Enterprise and not the third, and why I don't really like Deep Space Nine. But I get why people do. So on to the episode, and first I've got to shout out Tom Wright, who played Tuvix. I know him from martial law, but despite not being familiar with Voyager, he knew Tim Russ and Ethan Phillips personally, and it really helped in the portrayal of the character. I'm so glad they ditched the initial plan of having Ethan Phillips play the character, because he has such a distinct voice, and having Wright in the role really hammered home the message of Tuvix being a completely different individual person from Tuvok and Neelix. The decision surrounding Tuvix is kind of mirroring Janeway's decision about the Ocampa and the caretaker, but in this case she actually sacrifices the other party for the sake of her crew. It feels like she's making the decision now that she thought she should have made at the time, and that final shot of her face is everything. And it's also important that Janeway is the one to do the deed herself, essentially murdering someone, which is pretty dark. The episode reminds me of the Enterprise episode Similitude with a similar theme, which I would love to cover at some point because you know I love me some Enterprise. There is some amazing acting throughout. Janeway's face tells 1,000 stories, Tuvix's plea to everyone on the bridge is heartbreaking, and even Kes, who's usually pretty mundane in my opinion, gave a really powerful performance, and her speech to Janeway at the end really choked me up. So there you have it. That was Tuvix. If there's an episode of Star Trek you'd like me to cover, pop it down in the comments below or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to be assimilated into my channel. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and live long and prosper.